Hello, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. We are here with our friend Kodon. Thank you so much for joining us on Adobe Live. Gonna be a great time. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited to be here. It means so much.
Yes, it's going to be a fun time. So, if you have not watched before, thank you so much for joining. This is a live stream to the chats. We are watching chats over on YouTube as well as Behance. So, if you're in either of those chats, you are sitting right over here for me. So, if I look over there, that's where all of you are. If you have questions, I am reading those questions live. We got a ton of people in chat saying hi. If you're watching on YouTube, leave us a red heart. If you're watching on Behance, leave us a little blue heart. But thanks for joining us. We will be answering questions as we go through. But let's hop in and let people know if they're just joining for the first time. If they're not familiar, who are you? What do you do? And I'm going to put up some of your work kind of as we talk so that people can get familiar with your look and the work that you do.
Yeah, my name's Kodone. I'm mostly an iPad illustrator. I try my best to capture as much pop culture, like American pop culture, as I can. I'm really big on minimalism, like simplicity, really, as you can tell from what you're seeing. Very inspired by what I'm surrounded by and what I grew up on. So basically, like my Instagram is me showing the people like, hey, like this is what I like to watch, or this is what I like to listen to, or you know what I mean? Just along those lines.
Yeah, and it's cool to see in your art the things that are important to you and the things that like you're into, maybe references or movies you liked or pop culture moments. And I do want to talk a little bit about some of this work. I think I see a lot of work here that is from comics, that's from manga, that's from anime, that is kind of these like pop culture references. Where did that start from? Like, there's a lot of stuff that is in the hip hop zone that you're kind of involved in, but I see a lot that is this pop culture moments. Where did that start for you?
It's really just like a diary to me. I treat my Instagram like a diary. Like it just hits me. Like there's just one day we wake up, you're on Twitter, Instagram, mostly YouTube for me, and you learn a new series, you never watched, or a new comic book series, or a new artist you just find. And like I just get really overly fascinated with that to the point where it's like, oh, I just want to draw this. Like when I find a new TV series, for example, like Jujutsu Kaisen, like I just got into that like a couple months ago with my girlfriend, and like it's like all like the only thing in my head. So it's like
Yep.
obviously I'm just gonna keep drawing all these things.
That's fun. And when you are watching shows and kind of taking in pop culture, are you looking for things to draw, or is it something that you see it and you're like, I have to draw that? Like, does it come to you, or are you looking for content now because you do so much illustration? Are you constantly looking for new subjects, or does it just kind of speak to you and then you decide, I
It
need to
has
draw
to
this?
speak to me. It has to speak to me. So that's like my biggest thing with these doodles is like they're very simple. So like with that being said, like I try not to make it like oversaturated to the point where I'm like, I need to look for something like I don't even like. I just know it's popular, so I'm gonna draw it. Like, no, it just has to like really hit me. You know what I mean? Like it just has to come to me.
That's awesome. And so, growing up, I believe you worked at a comic book shop at one point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
that's crazy. That's crazy, you know? That's fire. Yeah, I
uh,
did. That was my first job.
did that like influence you or kind of like set any kind of basis? How did you get like started with art and interested in this kind of illustration world?
So I've always been interested into art as a kid. Even like I want to say like my first beginning was when we had projects, school projects, where they were like make a little diorama or make a graph. And I always noticed, even as a kid, I always took it to the next level. Like
Yep.
that was always my favorite part of school. I wasn't the biggest on doing homework, but whenever there's a time to make a project, I was always like 200%, like would just try to go super nuts with it. Even my mom told me that. She's like, dude, like what? Like this is the most complicated diorama I've ever seen. Or like I would make like comic strips for stuff like this. So it's always been around. And then I want to thank my brother actually. He had a nice computer growing up. I was like probably 8 years old. He had this computer just collecting dust basically. And I just remember like getting on there and being like seeing all these programs like Photoshop. Photoshop is the biggest entryway for me because he had a lot of music on his iTunes or whatever, and I noticed there was missing a lot of cover art. And for some reason, just that just like never hit right for me. I'm like, where's the cover art? Where is this?
Yep.
So what I would do would be I would actually make my own cover art for like a lot of these songs. I want to say there was one summer where I made like 200 cover arts for just a bunch of random songs in his library.
Yeah, and I remember you had started working on kind of album cover art with the mashups that were happening like way back in the day. And I think we were like in a similar zone with this, that there would be these two artists that like they'd cross over. And like I remember that Linkin Park did a thing with Jay-Z, and then people started just kind of smashing
Yes.
together like these different styles. And I love that as an inspiration for you of like hitting kind of smashing stuff together and thinking, how can I translate the concept of the audio and the music into a visual and start making album covers for that? How did you like decide to start making album covers? Like it seems to be a zone that really got you excited. How did that come about?
Hey, honestly, I just don't know. It was really out of like, I wouldn't say out of necessity, but it was just driving me crazy that my brother's iTunes just looked so plain, you know? Like, I'm like, where's the color? Where's the art? Like, where are these cover arts, you know? And like, and a lot of them were just like mashups. It's funny you bring that up because a lot of them were mashups, like unofficial DJ tracks that he had on there. So I was like, well, there's not going to be an official cover art for this. I might as well get, Jay-Z and Linkin Park and like, do something with that, and another big inspiration was DJ Hero. I don't know if you're familiar with that video game, but
Oh yes,
the
yes. I was a DDR
yeah,
kid
yeah, yeah.
growing
I
up,
don't know
so
if you
I
remember the cover art. I don't know if you remember the cover art for the video game. It was like a collage of stickers.
okay.
Like it's very colorful. That's actually a huge inspiration for me was the collage, the white outline on the stickers and stuff. Like that was huge.
Yes, this is when we transitioned from Guitar Hero, and we were going into, yes, the DJ Hero with
Yeah,
all these
that.
different stickers. Yeah, all this stuff. That's interesting that you kind of have this eclectic, broad inspiration of it's just if it speaks to you, if it's cool, if it makes you feel something, you kind of chase it and create something based off of that and like riff off of it, which I think is really fun. And someone in the chat, our friend Cartier, is asking dream collab on an album cover, or has that already happened? I know you've done some album covers you've been super stoked about. Anybody you're waiting to hit you up?
Ah, Frank Ocean, like all the way through. I know he's an artist where he's doing his own thing, and that's like the biggest reason why he inspires me so much. But if he ever wants to do that, I'm right here. I'll drop everything. Let's get that cover art in or
There you go.
anything, merchandise, like anything.
Clear the schedule.
Another one, probably From Software. They're the people that make all the Dark Souls games and like the Elden Ring games and stuff. Like that's another dream collab. Those two for sure.
And we have some more questions. I'm going to take some from chat. They've been backing up a little bit, which chat, thanks so much for participating. There's a lot of comments that are just goat, goat, goat. So here's what my question to kind of flip this. There's a lot of people in chat that are just like, you are the goat of this space. Who are your goats? Who are the people that you look up to that you're like, oh man, these are the people that hit it? Do you have any inspirations like that? Who are the other people in the scene that you're into?
Like in my contemporaries, you would say, or just like anyone
I'd
that.
say anybody, any kind of inspirations visually.
Oh man, honestly, this is gonna sound really funny, but it's gonna make sense when I say it. But Hello Kitty, like,
Oh
just
yeah.
like I don't know, you can even see my characters, like no mouth, no facial expression. Hello Kitty, DJ Hero, Murakami, mostly for the colors, for sure. Like the colors he uses is like insane. Um, I forget his name. This sounds so awful. I forget his name. What's his name? Dieter Rams. Dieter Rams. He's the dude that made all the like old speakers and like the Braun technology. Is it Dieter Rams? Yeah. But he inspired me when it came to simplicity, for sure. Like that's someone that I look up to when it comes to like simplicity and like, getting to the main like base of your art, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Yeah, and I love the simplicity and uh kind of the way that you take these worlds that are so robust at times, especially with video games, and then you like interpret them into your style. I'm looking at this Kingdom Hearts piece here, and I love
Yeah.
seeing that like you have your signature style, you have your things that you do, you have your way of seeing the world and seeing these characters. And like the actual games and the actual characters are so different, and in this, like, they have so much context to them, and how to boil that down to have the simplicity and kind of just tell the story that you want to. As you've been working, did you go through iterations and have to like find your style of creating these characters, or has it just kind of been like, oh, this is how I draw people? What's that process
Yes,
been
it was
like?
a lot. It was a lot. It was, I want to say, I started my art career seriously, like actually serious as Kodone in 2015. And I would say it took until like 2019 where I was like, okay, this is an art style that I'm like, I for sure want to refine and hone in on, which is what you're seeing today. Like, and it's funny because I would try my very hardest to like get as detailed as possible and like, I would even say realism to an extent. And then it got to the point where I was like, am I even having fun with this? It was almost like I was lying to myself as a creative. I was
Yep.
just like, I'm not even having fun with this, I don't think. Like, and then like it just came back to me just wanting to have fun with it. Like 2019, I would say that was the peak of like, or not the peak, but like the beginning of like going viral and stuff. And it was mostly just me having fun with it. Because I was just like, oh, I want people to have fun. Like I want to bring enjoyment. Like I want to bring an aspect of nostalgia. Because I know everyone has, or I know there's been a good amount of people that have played Kingdom Hearts
Oh
or
yeah.
listens to the same music I've listened to or know these iconic hip hop moments. Like I want to take all those moments and simplify them and make them in this like cute, funny version where people say it, they're like, "Oh my God, this is like hilarious. This is cute." Like then show it to their friends and be like, "Dude, look at this."
Yep. And you kind of have grown into having a very large following. Obviously, our friends in chat, y'all are here and out here for you, which is awesome. What's that been like to have started something that is like, I'm making album covers for my iTunes, to now having this big fan base, having this large community? What's it been like growing and kind of seeing that momentum happen? Has it been overwhelming, exciting? Has it been intimidating? What's it been like for you to kind of have that audience?
It's really surreal. It's really surreal because my whole like art career up until 2019, I always defined myself as a bedroom artist, like in my mom's house, in my bedroom, just drawing, drawing, drawing every day. And then when it started taking off in 2019, Dre, he's my manager, he booked me for my first pop-up in Atlanta, which I've never been to. This is the first time it really hit me, like really hard. We went to the Atlanta pop-up. I was obviously a little nervous. And then I step out the venue and I see there's a line down like 3 blocks, 4 blocks, huge line. And I just remember seeing that and like, it sounds like funny, but it's like, I was like, really like, is this real? Like, I was like pinching myself. I was like, this is nuts. I went from like drawing in my bedroom, these like basically just trying to bring enjoyment to people, just like, just having fun with it, to like the next thing, like going to a city I've never been to and having a line of like 4 blocks worth, you know what I mean, down the line. Like it's it's crazy, and I, I
Yep.
still I still don't get used to it. Like I'll get recognized sometimes and they're like, dude, are you Kodone? And it's still, I'm like, dude, like, you know what I mean? It's just crazy. Like it still doesn't register.
Yeah, and it's cool. I mean, it seems like reading the chat, like there is a really cool community that loves your art and really like kind of rallies around the work that you do. We do have some more questions coming in over on YouTube in the Q&A tab. If you're on YouTube, there is a tab for Q&A if you want to toss your questions in there. I also am reading the regular chat, but let's go ahead and hop into a couple of these questions real quick. And I pulled up this piece that I have on my screen very specifically. Also, subscribe to Adobe Live on YouTube. Have a little thing. If you're watching, hit that subscribe button. Just one little click. This piece right here I pulled up because Cryino is asking, where did the bunnies come from? As we're scrolling through, we see a lot of this character. Where did this come from? What's the story? Why do they show up so much? What's the deal?
The bunny is like my narrative character. So like I would like to say I have like three different vibes when it comes to my art. The pop culture, I
Yep.
have something called Glass House where it's just like recreations of like, real life moments. And then the bunnies are just like what I use to like explain myself. It's almost like my talking, like my character that talks for me. So they're like that, for example, this is like me and my friends, we like to play pool. That's me, and my girlfriend, the bunny with the red hair.
Oh,
That's
that's
us
so
getting
cool.
sushi. Yeah, so like with moments like these like really special moments where it's like the same thing with like pop culture. When I find something I really like, I obsess with it. Like it gets to the point where like this is the only thing I could draw. And like, this is like our thing. Like once a week we'll go get sushi. So this is like just something I wanted to share with the people. Like I like to have little intimate moments too as an artist. I feel like it's really important to share with your community, just to show like, I'm a person too.
Yep, and that's so cool. And that goes back to kind of what we were talking about of the way that you see the world and you translate it into your style and the way that you see everything. And I love having that explanation. There's a lot of people in chat that are like, "Oh, I didn't like realize," and it's great to see like, "Oh, those are just the moments that aren't pop culture, that aren't something I'm seeing, that's something that is my life that I may not want to just post a picture of, that I want to like share that experience and tell that story." But tell it in my style and the way that I see it, which is really cool. That's
Yeah.
rad. A couple more questions that are just requests. People are asking, are there figures on the way? And then people are asking, when are you going to do some phone cases? That's a good. The chat's really asking for some goods for you.
The
Um,
toys are on the way.
okay,
We've been working a lot on the toys. I'm really excited to show y'all. I guess I can give y'all a hint. We got six on the way. They're in the works. We have six figures on the way. Just be patient. I promise it's gonna be so worth it. You guys are gonna love them.
there you
Super
go.
iconic stuff. The
Exclusive.
phone cases, I feel like I need to do a poll of sorts or something because I just realized I was like, there's so many different versions of phones out there. Like which is going to be the main one I should invest in, or the big three. So that's been the next one. But yes, I do want to do phone cases very badly.
And looking and speaking of phone cases, I'm pulling up one here that you have actually painted on. And this is like kind of another level of the way that you create is we have a lot of work that we do on iPad in Fresco, which we're going to be taking a look at in a little bit. We do have some questions about your process with Fresco and on iPad, but we also do a lot of physical painting. We paint on clothes, phone case here. How does that translate off of the iPad into the real world? And is it a different approach? Does it feel familiar because you're working in Fresco and then it's kind of the same in the real world? Or how do you kind of balance the dynamic of those two?
It's kind of funny. So like when I paint on stuff, it's almost like that's like my break. You know what I mean? That's like my little like my creature comfort in a way. Like
Yep.
the phone, it's like, oh, this is an old phone case I found. I'm probably not gonna do anything with it, which I'm really big on upcycling stuff, by the way. So I'm like, oh, this is a phone case. I don't want to throw it away either. So I spray painted it orange, put a sealant on it, and then I just painted over it, sealed it again. And now I'm like, oh, I have a new product. This is fun. Like I made use out of it. I have a big thing with when I order stuff, like the boxes, I don't throw them away, or I try not to throw them away because I usually paint them and I use them as art pieces, like you might see it on my Instagram, but like I do a lot of box work. Really, really, really big on upcycling. I feel like that's a big thing us artists should hone in on for
Yep.
sure.
And I think that that's a trend that I see even in streetwear. It's become a big trend to upcycle stuff, that it's not about using new materials and fabrics. It's about like, let's go thrifting, tear stuff up and
Mhm.
reconstruct some cool piece. And I love that as a part of the culture of that it's all about creating something new from something that already exists, which is really cool. Talking about
Yeah,
some
it's
vibes
really
here.
fun. It's funny you bring that up too, because in 2018, that was a big thing for me where I would go to thrift stores just to solely like find stuff to paint on.
Yep.
It was like in my local thrift store, it's like I think every Wednesday it's like half off on like all clothes with like a blue tag on it. So I'll just be like, oh yes, new canvases, let's go,
Uh-huh.
like
And here's some of the box work I found out. I was scrolling through. Here's some of the
yeah,
box
that's some
work.
box work.
That's so fun to be able to like just reimagine that you're ordering something and then you're like, hey, this is art now. And it's cool. Again,
Yeah.
the way that you see the world is that like anything can be art and art can be on anything.
Yeah, like there's nothing should be wasted. You can always just make it cooler. Like if you don't like it, just do something about it.
Yeah,
Like
yes,
that's how
just
I see
fix
it.
it. Yeah. Easy fix.
Fix it.
Oh,
Mm.
it's some Boots? Oh yeah, the boots with the fur and
Yeah,
the
so these
art.
are some boots. Yeah, so these are some boots I'm working on. They're currently in the production because I just want them to be really perfect. But I was inspired because I found this specific model at the thrift store for $8 and I fell in love with the model. And back to the thing with me obsessing with stuff. I want to say like a couple months later, I picked it back up and I swear I bought every single pair of these boots on eBay. I swear I bought like 20 pairs of them just to make like multiple different colorways and all that because it's like it's all to aid the final production product, like I
Yep.
just want to see what's the best one.
Those are some dope boots too. Like the thick sole with like the little comfort, warm and trekkable. It's good. A couple other
Yeah,
questions coming in from chat. As a creator and photographer, and this is from Jack, is out of Tulsa as well. There's not a lot of
hey, I
inspirations, a
know
little
who
bit
that
of a
is.
dry city. What do you do to stay creatively inspired, to stay consistent, and maintain your kind of like creativity in a city that may not have a huge art scene? And it seems like you are bringing a lot of the art scene to the city, but how do you stay inspired in a place that maybe isn't a hotbed for art like LA or New York?
Uh, the way I go about it is like just like it's gonna sound kind of funny, but just try to find something new in your like surroundings. So like for example, I go to my local art museum so often. I would even say like twice a week. And you can argue, oh, well, you've seen every single like painting in there. Like, what do you gain out of that? And honestly, a lot. Like every time I go, I always spot something new. Even in a painting I've seen hundreds of times, I'll look at it and be like, wow, that's crazy shading right there they did there. Or like, dang, that's a really good color they used. Um, yeah, just it's really the small things for me that I get the most inspiration out of. Like, I try not to like trying to find the word for it. I try not to dread over like my surroundings. It's like I always try to pull out of my own head for sure. Just I don't know how to explain it. It's really hard.
You kind of go and just take it in and then just synthesize. And again, it's the way that you see the world is you're just going to look at stuff and then thinking, how would I tell that story? Like, how would I communicate that color? Or how would I incorporate that idea? And that's really cool. Somebody else is asking,
Exactly,
how
man,
big is your
dude.
team? Is it just you? Like, what's your kind of setup and how you execute all this?
It's a fairly small team. It's just me and Dre and like a couple other people, like our shipping guys. We're a really, really small team, honestly.
That's rad.
Dre helps me out so much with like the pop-ups, the events, manufacturing, production, like I can go to him and be like, yo, is this possible? Like, can we do this? And he's just his encyclopedia of like clothing being made or any type of product being made is like instant. Like that's why I love going to him with that kind of stuff because he can just let me know straight up, like, I don't know if it's gonna be possible, or like, this color might not come out right. And then
That's
I'm
rad.
just the art guy, I'm just
I'm just
I
making
bring the
cool
art.
stuff. You guys figure it out.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of questions coming in about your specific process and brushes and kind of how
Mhm.
you create. Let's hop over to iPad maybe a little bit, and we can kind of
Mhm.
show a little bit of how you work. And I do want to talk as we hop over there about working on the iPad. You kind of talked before about it being this accessible, anyone can do it. Like you can have your whole studio in your bag. What is it like for you to have all that with you? And has it changed your process since you switched over? Or have you started working on iPad? What's that been like for you? And kind of maybe how would you convince someone else to get started that is kind of not sure if it's for them?
So for me with the iPad is I used to use a lot of like alcohol-based markers, and I would bring a lot of stuff in my backpack. Like my backpack weighed tons. And then whenever I moved to the iPad, it was just only my iPad in my backpack. It was just like, wow, I have every single color in my iPad. I have layers. I have the lasso tool. I have vector. Vector was the big one, especially if you're a clothing designer. It's so convenient. I can't stress that enough. Um, Honestly, it just depends what you want to do. But if you're a clothing brand designer, I definitely recommend getting an iPad, like 100%.
Yep, and it helps you be mobile too. Are you the kind of creative that like sometimes needs to be somewhere else to create? And is it like you? It's nice to go out and be able to create another place, and then also it sounds like just having it on you is nice. You're like, oh, I just got this idea. I don't have to go home and sit down at the computer. I can pull this out right now and just sketch out the idea.
Exactly. That's another one is just the fact that I can just pull my iPad out. You know what I mean? Just pull it out. And another thing is, it's cool they bring that up because I was just telling my girlfriend the other day, I was like, I get so inspired just being in weird spots to draw because the location itself is like so much fuel for me. Like one of my favorite memories was I went to Disneyland a couple years ago, and it was like when the parade was going on, and like I don't know what it was, but like I had this jolt of creative energy just hit me, and I was like, I need my iPad out. And I just remember just like making this varsity jacket. If you scroll, you can probably find it, but like I
Oh,
just
I will
remember like
find it.
cooking up this I remember cooking up this varsity jacket then and there, like instantly. It was like a 30-minute thing.
Yeah,
Definitely flow state.
it definitely is like the place to work. It's funny that you say that because I literally was working at Disneyland last Thursday. I was like, all right, like I'm gonna head over at lunch, pop up my laptop, and just sit and answer emails, design stuff, get inspired. And I found a little table and watched the parades come by and did the exact same thing. So it is
Yeah.
100%. It's a good vibe to get out there and just get into space that is a good energy because you can just vibe off of it, which is really cool.
Yeah, all the colors and just like really what it was for me with Disneyland was just the world building. Cause I was just like, you really do feel like you're in a whole new world when you're there,
Yes.
like
Whole new world.
a
Okay,
whole
so
new
let's hop
world.
an iPad. We got a lot of questions about the brushes you use. Can you kind of take us through what's your process? We open up Fresco and where you start and where are we going? Oh, also, I did
So
find the
I
varsity
like to use,
jacket. Sorry, I found the varsity jacket. If
oh
this is
yeah,
the right one, is this the varsity jacket we're
yes,
talking
that's
about
the
here?
one. Yeah, that's the
Boom.
one.
Got it. Deep cuts.
Yeah.
Okay, back to your screen. Let's hop into Fresco. Take a look at your process.
So like my art style, I would like to say like it's pretty rough. Like I like purposely like I don't really like clean lines per se. I like a little wobbly line. So like me, I like to use the jitter brushes. That's my cup of tea. Right here. You can kind of see right here. Like it gets a little jittery. Yeah, you see that? Like I try like never to make it too perfect. Like people, some I've had comments before where people are like, oh, this isn't as symmetrical, or like, oh, this just looks like the shading doesn't make sense here. And I'm like, oh, well, I try to do that on purpose. My first drafts, if anything, are look really quote unquote great. Like they look very symmetrical, very clean. But the moment I put it in Fresco, I purposely try to make it. I'm like, I wonder how wobbly I can make this. I wonder like how crazy I can make this look. It's almost like you build to destroy in a way, I like to say.
Yeah, and I love that kind
So
of knowing what you're supposed to do and then choosing not to do it. That gives you that unique style.
yeah,
You're
like
like,
I try
okay,
to like simplify it as hard as I can. So like right here I have, so usually I draw it out physically, right? And then I just scan it. And then that's when I hit. This is for my clothing brand designers. This is where it gets real. This is real key. This is real game. I just retrace it in vector, and as you can tell right here, no pixel. No
oh
pixel at
yeah.
all.
So we're
So
using full vector
when you
brushes
send
here.
it to the screen printer, it's gonna be green every time. Like there's been so many instances in the past where they're just like, yo, it's too pixelated or it's too this and that, like we just can't do it. And then it becomes a thing where I have to spend another 2, 3 days redrawing it again on a different dimension. With this, just hit it once with the vector and you're good to go. Especially with me, since we do like usually we use the same art piece for multiple different products. So right here, like, okay, so this is the beginning and this is the end, you know?
Oh yeah, we made it all the way through.
Yeah. So That you see that like it's a really small print on the t-shirt, but like we can send that to another manufacturer and he can blow it up for us on a poster, a 24 by 36 poster. And it won't lose any like pixels at all. Like the quality is still great.
And did
And
you
it
have to
saves
like
so much time.
did you have to make that transition when you were initially creating art and album covers and all that? You were kind of just like drawing, and then once you hit a zone where you're like, "Oh, I have to do this a certain way to be able to sell it." Was that
Yes.
a shift for you of like, it's commercial art now, and I need to figure out how to make this sellable so that it can actually print?
It was a pretty big wake up call because it was to a point where it was I wouldn't say I was a brat, but like like I would be like, what do you mean it's not good? Like it's art, just like not in a mean way, but I was just like, what? Like, why is it not good? It looks good on my end. And then you realize that like, this is screen printing we're talking about. This is like product that you're gonna sell to your customers. Like obviously I want to give my people the best quality we can, like I want them to see the art in the same high quality I see the art when I'm making it. So then like, I'm like, all right, all right, all right. Like, we gotta grow up and, hit it with the vector.
Yep. And so I can see there in Fresco, we have a whole bunch of layers. Can you take us through? Are we scanning in your sketch usually? Do you like start with a just grab your sketch and then build on top of
Yeah,
that?
I
What's kind of your
sketch. So that's
process?
another thing. So a lot of people so when I collab with people, I'm kind of a headache sometimes because like I merge all my layers down. I merge all my layers down because like I'm a very fast worker. So like there's times where I'm just like it can be the smallest action as like, oh, I don't have enough time for switching different layers to do these different line works. I just like merging everything because I know I'm just working on one layer. Also, I feel like it adds more to like an authentic feel. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like a real art piece, because in the real life there is no layers per se.
That's so
So
interesting. Yeah.
like
So you're just like mashing everything down and you just go for it.
yeah, and like even if I'm like there's times where I'm like I know I'm gonna regret this later. I know I am. But I feel like that's part of the experience. I feel like it adds a little something to the digital art. I'm not saying it makes it more realistic, but it definitely like it makes it feel like very natural to me as like a former, you know, um marker-based artist for sure or paint-based artist.
Yep. And how's the transition been to working in Fresco and learning those tools and turning that kind of workflow that you have in the physical world into the digital? Has that been easy for you to kind of get into Fresco and be like, oh, there's tools here that are the same? Or what's that been
Oh
like?
yeah, I love it. So it's so convenient. Like it's so awesome. Like it's like I said, at the end of the day, too, it's just like I know that I can send this to my manufacturers and like everything's fine. Like there's not gonna be any back and forth at all. Like back in 2015 to I want to say 20 early 2017, fun fact, everything I made was all on an iPhone 5. Like cracked iPhone 5 at that.
That's crazy.
Everything like down to the scanning the photo, like drawing, and then like I got the iPad. I'm like, okay, like now we can like, do this right. But
That's wild. So somebody asking here, which kind of transitions from where he's just talking about. How long does a typical doodle take? Do you usually do it in one sitting? Do you do it over multiple times? And it sounds like maybe if you're on phone, you're kind of doing it as you go. And now that you're on iPad, are you like sitting down? You're like, all right, I'm going to finish this piece, or is it you do it in pieces over time? What's kind of your process?
it depends. Like the more, well, let's say, the more intimate or the more special the doodle is to me, like the moment or whatever it is, there's usually a lot that goes into it, believe it or not. Because I'll make like 20 different doodles. I'll make 20 different versions before I settle on like the final three. And then out of those final three, I'll like make final versions of those and I'll just keep narrowing it down until I'm like, this is the perfect doodle. So there's like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like each doodle could like takes me like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, yes. But I'm doing probably like 10 more of those. And then after that, it's a whole process. Like I try narrowing it down as much as I can.
Yep. And how did you learn like how did you learn to draw in the first place? Like, are you like went to school? Are you YouTube University? Like, how did you even learn to translate and draw?
Everything is self-taught. So I've always drawn as a kid. I've always liked drawing. Then I kind of took a break. I want to say in ninth grade. Not a lot of people know this, but I was really into dancing. I was a big dancing guy.
Okay.
So yeah. So I had a dance crew. We're called like ODK or something. It was some, some eighth grade stuff. And the thing with me was when I edited videos, I would make a lot of our stuff in Photoshop, our logos. It became a thing where I was like, I'm on Photoshop more than I am actually dancing. Like I'm making our logos, I'm making our clothes, I'm making our like everything basically. And even like surrounding dance crews around the area, they'd be like, good friends. They'd be like, yo, man, I want to make shirts or hoodies for my dance crew. Think you can help me out? And I would just be like, yeah, man. And I'd cook them up a logo and like, just make them designs and stuff. And that was me in like eighth grade.
That's crazy. And
So
so you kind of just
it
kept
slowly
adapting it.
started transition. Yeah, it just slowly started transitioning to the point where I was like, dang, I'm on Photoshop more than I am dancing. And then it becomes a thing where I'm like video editing and I was like drawing stuff to add to the video, if that makes sense. Like just like little like sketches to add to the video. And it became a thing where it was also where I was like, I'm drawing more than I am editing the video. It was like such a slow transition. It was probably like a year or two of just like slowly transitioning to fully like realizing that, wow, 90% of my work is just drawing.
Yeah. That's interesting. And when it comes to like color and shading and all that stuff, it's just you tried it and tried it and tried it, and then eventually it stuck.
Yeah, it's just all trying and trying. I'm just like, oh, that's a nice shade of blue. I like that. And then I become obsessed with it and I just like learn off that. Or, like that's just how it goes.
Yep. And a question
Everything is
from
just like self-taught.
yeah, a question from the chat. How do you pick what moments to draw? You do a lot of pop culture moments of capturing kind of culture. And over on my screen, we have this drawing of, I believe this is Frank Ocean at the Met Gala a
Yeah.
couple years ago. He like brought like a doll with him that was like, it was a whole thing, but it's something
Yeah.
like this, right? That we have all these cultural moments at the Met Gala, and we've got Rihanna showing up, and we've got all these like huge moments. How did you pick this one as the one to draw, as not, as opposed to someone else who maybe had a moment during that time?
Well, one, I'm gonna get the easy one out the way. I just love Frank Ocean.
Yeah, I was
So
gonna
I'm
say,
just
you
like,
love it. Yeah, easy.
but two, like just the colors alone. Honestly, it's really the colors that got me. The pattern on like the little dolls, like suit, the blue he was wearing, that navy, like the green, just like really like just the colors got me. Like take away the Frank Ocean stuff aside, it was the colors that got me. It just
That's cool.
resonated with me a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
So usually with
during,
like
go ahead.
oh, I was just saying like usually like I don't go out my way to find stuff to draw. Like I said, like I try my hardest not to go out my way. Like it has to be really genuine, like to the point where like the doodle pops up in my head before I even start working on it.
Yep.
Like it just has to resonate.
Yep. And going way back, I love seeing your work kind of evolving. And we were asking about the bunnies and how they've kind of become a more personal thing. And I love that the further I went back, the more bunnies there were. And I love
Yeah.
all these different variations of like we got Candyman, Pennywise, all these great like horror moments in these bunnies. Was it something that like they used to be characters you'd incorporate and then it started to become more personal? Yes, we've got some Midsummer, we got some Ari Aster stuff here,
Yes,
Midsummer.
yes.
We
My
got
favorite.
Hereditary, fantastic stuff. Did these start to move away from the pop culture and more into personal at some point?
It kind of hits in waves sometimes. So with the bunny stuff there, the horror stuff you're seeing. So the year before that, I did just normal, the Halloween doodles, just normal. And then the year after, what you're seeing is like I just did the bunny versions of them. So my thing with me is Halloween is my favorite holiday. So
Yes,
like
it is the
every
best
Halloween, I
holiday.
try to do like the 31 days of like Kodone Halloween, where I do like my favorite like horror movie like every single day, you know?
That's so rad. And I love
And
again
that's another thing
seeing.
of me being like, I just love Halloween. Like I just want people to know this, like here's this, here's these drawings.
Yep. And I love that, like, for this and even Midsummer, but especially this, if you've seen Hereditary, this is like such a horrific scene. Like this scene in particular is like, what is going on? But you've done it in your style, and it like is somehow not as intent. Like it feels still kind of fun and jovial and quirky, and you're like, this is horrifying. And somehow you interpreting it is it's still kind of like cute and fun.
Yeah, that's what I try going for. There's like moments like that's like another factor in my art is like I like taking super serious characters or moments and like trying to make them more like, quote unquote cute. You know what I mean? It's like if you're really familiar with this topic, I want you to see it like in a different perspective, just like something you would never think of like,
Yep. And
Another big
even
inspiration for me was I don't know if you're familiar with like chibi art. It's like Japanese anime. It's like where they like make the characters like cute version. They're like just like really tiny.
yep.
That like really was a big inspiration to me. Like when I was in fourth grade, like third grade, like that was a big one for me.
Yep. Ooh, somebody in chat saying, have you ever thought about dipping into the jewelry industry? A bunny chain would go hard.
Yeah, I have been. We've been working on it for sure. We definitely have some stuff. We've made a couple jewelry pieces, but I'm trying to make something more like what's the word I'm looking for? That you can actually wear like every day and it's not too loud. I want to make more like, more calmer, more subtle jewelry. But it's
Yep.
on the way though. On the way.
And again, I love the style is like this looks so cute and fun, and it's literally Hellraiser that has like Pinhead's just got like nails in his head, and you're like, but it's cute now.
Yeah. That one's funny because growing up, I always remember my brother being like, "Oh, Pinhead's the scariest character for me. Like it's always been so scary to me."
Yep,
So that one I definitely have a lot of fun with, just
that's
because all
so
the
fun.
memories attached to it.
So are there any characters or moments or people that are in the back of your mind that you're like, oh man, I need to draw that, like that are kind of just sitting on the back burner that you haven't drawn yet, or does it kind of just come to you in the moment?
It just comes to me in the moment. Like my biggest inspirations for me to do that is just like, I'm just scrolling on YouTube, just watching stuff, and it just
Yep.
like comes to me. I'm just like for example, like one of those like top 10 lists, it's like, oh, top 10 anime fights. And it's like it like wakes up something in my head, like an old memory when I was a kid. For example, when I was drawing a lot of the Kingdom Hearts stuff, I grew up on the Kingdom Hearts series. Like that's what I
Mm-hmm.
grew up on. Like I played them million times over. I'm watching a YouTube video and they're on like a top 10 list for something. And I'm just like, dude, what a great series. That's such a good series. I'm gonna draw that this week. And I just obsess over it for like 2 weeks.
Were you a Final Fantasy into Kingdom Hearts, or did you start
Yes.
in Kingdom Hearts? Okay, you made the transition. Yeah,
Yes.
you're a real
Yeah,
one.
yeah. So Final Fantasy 7, yeah, my big cousin, I remember he left the game at my house and I just put the game in and I'm gonna be honest, I did not know how to play the game. So when he came back, I was like, yo, you left your game and I tried playing it and it was like impossible. Like, what's the deal? And he just gave me the whole spiel and ever since then I was obsessed with it. Like he just taught me how to play it.
Oh, absolutely. I when I played through, I literally started just raising Kokobo, and I was like, "This is the game now. I am just a
Yeah,
farmer
this
that wants to hang out with these birds, and that's my life. I don't care about the rest of the story. That's all I want to do."
this is all I want to do.
Yep, and yeah, somebody in chat saying Kingdom Hearts collection ASAP. Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Yes.
So this is, I know, some of the work that kind of like started to blow up is you're capturing these moments within hip hop and pop culture and like interpreting them in your own way. Um, Once stuff started to get popular and you saw traction on certain things that you were doing, did you start to lean more into recreating more of that art, or did you kind of just keep expanding into, hey, I'm just going to make what I want, or did the notoriety kind of like sway the way that you create?
It swayed me a little bit for sure in the terms of just like back to what I said, just like I really just wanted to make some fun stuff for
Yep.
people because before this, I was making very serious art, like, or quote unquote, I was trying to make more serious art. And then I just saw like this huge positive like feedback, like just knowing like people were showing their other friends, like, yo, he just drew the Young Thug runway moment. Isn't this crazy? Or like just little stuff like that, like on Twitter, it just went crazy viral. And I just almost felt like, dang, I'm bringing joy like on the internet, like that's awesome. Like I like doing that. Like I want to keep adding to that train.
Yep.
So I was definitely in a big pocket for that year for that.
And oh, this is a great question that is totally off topic from chat. Thank you, chat. This is just a great question. Are you a Yu-Gi-Oh guy? Are we getting any Yu-Gi-Oh
Yes, I
stuff?
am a
Okay.
huge Yu-Gi-Oh guy.
Okay.
That's like the first game I ever played, like card game. Like my cousin, we would play like for hours on end. And then actually, the first guy that asked the question from Tulsa Jack, I grew up, he was the Yu-Gi-Oh player. Like no one would beat it. Like no one would ever beat him ever. Like ever. So that was like always my goal for like 3 years to try to beat him. But
That's
yes,
yeah.
you just inspired me. I'm definitely gonna work on some Yu-Gi-Oh art next after this
Yes.
call, probably.
Activate that trap card. Let's
Yeah. Yeah,
um
activate it.
and so I wanted to check real quick here. We have a really cool back and forth that I just saw as I was scrolling is we have the modern, this was 5 weeks ago, of this character, and we go back
Yeah.
160 weeks ago, and we get to see the direct back and forth of like the shift in style, which I think is so cool to see kind of where you started to where you are now.
Yo, thank you for actually bringing this up. I was actually gonna bring this up myself earlier, but like, yeah, there's a lot of doodles I've done in 2019 where like I like them and I'm happy with them, but like now that I have it way more refined, this art style, I'm like going back and redoing them.
That's
And
rad.
I was gonna bring this up whenever you showed that Young Thug one, the runway one where he's wearing the red jacket, because to me that's like the perfect doodle. So most of like 90% of my older doodles, I want to go back and redo them just because it's fun.
Yep.
But that Young Thug one, I just think it's so perfect. Like that's something that I don't think I'm ever gonna touch. Like if anyone ever asks me what's my favorite, it's definitely my favorite for sure. Like that's my one of my magnum opuses.
Yes, this is
Yeah,
dope.
that one right there.
That's right. And we
And
got a
it's funny.
tattoo. Somebody
Yeah.
tattooed it.
Yes,
Oh,
and we're
yes,
gonna
we
go
got
back
made his
to touch
tattoos.
up the app. I did not forget about the app. We're gonna spin back for sure. Yeah, you can see it right there.
That's rad. We
Yeah,
have
these are activated stuff.
a couple questions, and okay, this is a great question from the chat. Of the two versions of this, which one do you like more? Which one are you more into it? Do you like the more modern one, or do you miss the nostalgia of your older style?
I like the modern one on that one, honestly.
Yep. Yeah,
Just
I
because
think that
it's like
it's
more a little more uniform.
yep, and knowing
Because they
where you
all the
are with
characters, I try to keep them like as close as possible, if that makes sense. Like I try to keep them all like structurally the same, very
yep.
symmetrical in a way.
Yeah, and it does feel like you found
For
your style to where like even between these two, they're similar, but unique in a lot of ways to where you've really found your style to where all these are like, yes, that is what they are. Like they are so cohesive. We had a question in chat from Keys, I believe, saying, with all the bunnies and all the kind of stories you're telling, a comic book on the way, maybe? Have you ever thought about trying to make your own comic with those characters?
So that's another project I've been working on. It's funny, I was gonna release it in early 2019, and then like all this stuff started going viral. So I was like, let me wait a second and I'm gonna let my life like collect more life experiences so I can add to this book. But I am still working on this book called Glass House, and it's basically just like a whole recap of my whole life. So like I guess you can call it a comic book, but I would like to call it a visual poetry book
That's rad.
because it's just like these. Yeah, so I'm just working on that. I was supposed to drop that in 2019, but like I said, like the viral stuff just happened and just it all came so fast. And I was like, you know what? Let me put a pause on that. I need to add this and the future into this book.
Yep. So there's a lot of people that are asking for certain properties, so I'll just call out some of them. People want to see some Soul Eater stuff. We got Sly Cooper, some Jack and Daxter, uh, lots of Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. There's a lot of deep cuts in there, which I think is really cool. Which brings to the question: what are you playing now? What are you reading now? What is your zone? Any video games that you're into right now? What's kind of the inspiration that's lingering?
My next one, I have them done. I'm just really just refining them and touching them up. But I'm doing a lot of cult classic films, like just cult films. So like a lot of David Lynch stuff, a lot
Yep.
of Alfred Hitchcock stuff. Just like, just a bunch of those older like 90s to, like early 2000s movies. That's probably going to be the next like era or the next little chapter I have coming up next.
Yeah, well, we
Just
just
like more
passed
deep
halfway
dive
to
stuff.
Halloween, so it's fitting. I think April
Yeah,
is like we're
yeah, it's
halfway, so
loading
it's like,
up.
yeah, let's do two Halloweens. Why not?
Yeah.
All right, so let's kind of do a quick Q&A chat. If you have any more questions, if you are over on YouTube, you can drop them in the Q&A panel. If you are on Behance, you can just ask them in the chat. We got about 4 or 5 more minutes left here. So if you have questions, please drop them in. And while we do that, I do want to talk about some of these more physical pieces that we see that you create sometimes on Canvas. And
Mhm.
they're much more abstract. There's a lot of work that isn't the pop culture references. Where is that coming from? Is that kind of just a creative outlet for you, or where do those come from?
Yeah, it's definitely a creative outlet. It's like my side like thing. So it's funny, like I'll have friends be like, "Oh, what are you doing today?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm just taking a break today. I'm taking it easy." And they're like, "Oh, okay, what do you want to hang out?" And I'm just like, "Well, taking it easy to me it means I'm gonna paint on a canvas today." Like that's like a break for me. It's just like almost like my second creator identity in a way.
That's rad. And I think that the the like creative release of that, of like you have inspirations that don't really fit anywhere else. If you have a style, if you have a way of working, you can kind of just have a place to put them, which I think is really cool that you have that. We do have a great question from the chat. How does one join your Discord? I know that you have a Discord that people can get involved with. How do they join your Discord?
I guess we should open it up soon. We usually work in waves. We usually work in waves because it's like we're just such a community. Like, you know what I mean? Like we have it like set. But, you know, probably the next drop will open it up for sure.
All
I
right, stay
usually
tuned,
drop a
everybody.
bunch of like, yeah, I usually drop a lot of like sneak peeks in there, or like a lot of the time, a lot of clothes we drop is driven by the community. So like there's been times where it's like I personally like an item, like a hoodie, for example. Let's say I like this hoodie and I drop two versions in the chat and I'm like, which one do y'all want? I may want the purple one, but the chat might want the red one, and most of the time I'm like, okay, I'm going with the chat on this one. This is for Discord. Like, we got y'all.
Heck yeah. We do have a great question that just came in from Love versus Leo. What project has taken you the most time? Has there been a project that has just been like the thorn in your side, that has just been a nightmare project that's just taken forever?
Yeah, so the completed one that we've dropped was in 2020. It was my first collection. I want to call it my debut collection. It was called Kodone World. And this was basically just like a 4-year project in the making, just mainly because I didn't know any manufacturers. And I was also just kind of figuring out myself as a designer, like my identity as a designer, like getting my designing chops. And it came in fruition because Dre, he actually like took the bullet for me. He was like, you know what, let's make this happen. And we figured it out. And it was so funny. It was a big learning experience for us because there was a lot of like hiccups on the manufacturers, and well, not that it was their fault, but just stuff that we didn't expect to happen.
Yep.
That was definitely like a big stressful moment for us, but I'm glad we saw it through and we made it happen.
Heck yeah.
Definitely like 3 years of planning, and then when we dropped it, it was like 4 months of making it go smooth.
Well, you got it. You got it, and you're on your way.
Yeah, we
And
got it. We
we
got
got
it.
it.
And
We
it
did it,
definitely inspired
everybody.
me.
So thanks so much
I'm
for
working on my
joining
second
us.
collection for
More
sure.
more
Oh,
collection on
no,
the
no, no,
way.
no. Yeah, new one. It's called Good Job Kodone. It's working. It's in the works. It's in the
There's so
works.
much in there. We got Yu-Gi-Oh! We got a new line. We got tons of stuff on the way. So make sure that you follow. There is a link in the description to go down and be a part and follow Kodone. Thanks so much for joining us today. And everybody stick around. There's more content right here on Adobe Live. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you another time for another spotlight here on Adobe Live. Bye, everybody.
Bye.